General Hospital spoilers for Thursday, July 3rd state that Willow Tate and Wiley Corinthos will have a pool encounter, prompting Michael Corinthos to intercede. Sonny Corinthos will also be questioned by PCPD, so let's get started and go over everything that happened. First, Lulu Spencer will speak with Laura Collins about how far she is willing to go to make that happen. Laura will undoubtedly want to avoid the escalating mob drama, but Lulu may wonder if she is willing to help take down Sonny as part of that plan. Michael will take Wiley to the Metro Court pool for his swimming lesson, but things will become uncomfortable when Willow arrives as well. Willow will want to spend time with her son, but Michael will advise her not to make things more difficult for Wiley than they need to be. Wiley is confused enough as it is, so Michael will get him out of there as quickly as possible. Emma Scorpio Drake will then offer guidance to Rocco Falconeri, while he sits with Danny Morgan. Emma will believe Rocco owes it to himself to find out the truth, which may include discussing Brooke Lynn Quartermain's file with his name on it. Brooke Lynn will share some awful news on Thursday's show. Maxie Jones will be surprised, so Brooke Lynn should enlighten her about their deception investment drama, as well as Natalia Ramirez's tragedy. Tracy Quartermain plans to pay Giovanni Gio Palmieri a visit at the pool. Tracy will claim that Joe's life is in danger and throw the accusation onto Sonny, but Gio may come to his defense. Sonny has been detained for questioning regarding Natalia's tragic death, so ADA Justine Turner will question him at the police station. It appears like ADA Turner will say Sonny is in serious trouble, and may try to persuade him to accept a plea offer. ADA Turner may act as like it is Sonny's best option, but he clearly does not trust her. Why should I take your word for it? Sonny asks ADA Turner in Thursday's preview video. Sonny may claim that he would be arrested if the cops had any evidence against him, and turn to Diane Miller for advice if things become complicated. Dante Falconeri will then meet with Jason Morgan to ask him a very critical question. Should I keep looking, or are they buried in the woods? Dante asks Jason in Thursday's preview clip. Dante appears to be on the lookout for the masked men who caused the fire, but he may be wondering if Jason beat him to the punch and killed the guys for good. Jen Sidwell has pulled in a handful of Selena Wu's pals and coerced her into a frame-up, but will Sonny and Jason believe what he is selling? Lucas Jones recently predicted a mob war between Sidwell and Sonny, thus it appears to be where this storyline is headed instead. Regardless, Jason may tell Dante that he hasn't found the fire starters yet. Finally, General Hospital spoilers indicate Trina Robinson will issue a warning to Kai Taylor. Although Trina may express further concerns about Drew Kane and how he cannot be trusted, Kai obviously disagrees. Will Kai admit he told Drew about Curtis Ashford's Jacinda plan, infuriating Trina? Despite the fact that the surface appeared tranquil, the air was dense with anxiety. The sun shined brightly over the Quartermain estate, casting light across the pool's dazzling blue surface. Willow had methodically planned this day, hoping for nothing more than a relaxing day with Wiley. She craved the serenity and tranquility that only time with her son could bring. After weeks of chaos, family upheaval, courtroom stress, and doubt about the people she trusted, Willow had found consolation in these brief, everyday moments. Wiley's laughing as he splashed at the edge of the pool made everything feel more doable. She had spread a nice towel across one of the chaise lounges and set out fresh juice boxes, cut fruit, and sunscreen for both of them. She donned a wide-brimmed straw hat to protect her skin from the sun, and her long hair was tucked behind her ears. She smiled gently at Wiley, watching him wade across the shallow end with floaties on each arm, whistling a tune he'd half-learned from a cartoon earlier that morning. Then came the voice she wasn't expecting to hear. Willow. Michael's tone was sharp and intentional, as if he had practiced it in the car before striding into her world uninvited. She turned slowly, her heart sinking. He waited near the gate leading from the driveway, wearing his normal collared shirt with the sleeves pulled up and a tiny touch of impatience on his brow. There was no tenderness in his expression, no attempt to hide whatever had led him here. It felt more like an imposition than a visit. "What are you doing here?" she inquired, though the words came out quieter than intended. Michael stepped closer, searching the water before settling on Wiley. "I needed to talk to you." She crossed her arms, protecting herself from what she felt was coming. "Can it wait? I told you it was my day with Wiley. I planned it for both of us." Michael exhaled, obviously annoyed. "I know, and I wouldn't be here unless it was important." Wiley turned and waved to his father. Daddy. Michael attempted a smile and waved back, but his gaze quickly returned to Willow. I don't want to do this in front of him, she stated firmly, her voice dropping to a whisper. Whatever it is, say it quietly or come back later. But Michael was never good at waiting, especially when he was unhappy. And suddenly everything was simmering just below the surface. It's about Nina, he explained. Willow blinked and her shoulders tightened. No, Michael. Not today. Not now. I do not want to talk about her. She crossed another line, he continued, disregarding her warning. And I don't think you understand how far she's willing to go. Willow clenched her jaw. Michael, I said not today. I don't care if it's today or tomorrow, he said, louder than necessary. Wiley's head cocked quickly at the abrupt change in tone. You keep giving her second chances, and it's going to blow back on all of us. Willow came forward, her eyes burning. That's not your decision to make. Michael's lips curved into a grimace/sneer. Do you believe you're protecting Wiley by allowing her around him? She is dangerous. She is unaware of boundaries. She doesn't respect you. She's just waiting for the right opportunity to turn things back in her favor. Wiley began to drift out of the water, sensing the increasing tension. He paused near the shallow steps, floaty still bobbing faintly, reaching for his towel. Mommy! Willow softened instantly, approaching him and crouching by him to dry off his arms. It's fine, sweetheart. Everything's fine. Michael watched them, but his irritation just grew. This is exactly what she does, Willow. She makes things appear normal until it isn't. Until she poisons those around her. You've already forgiven her more than once. Willow rose fast, cutting him off. I believe that individuals can change, Michael. Not everyone works in the same way you do. Not everything needs to be about punishment. She stole time from you, he said angrily. She kept your child from you. How can you stand here and say she deserves grace? Willow's expression was pained, yet she remained unwavering. Because if I don't strive to find forgiveness, I'll be trapped living in anger. This is not what I want for Wiley. That is not what I want for myself. Michael moved forward, his voice low and nearly shaking. You're so busy forgiving Nina that you don't notice what she's doing behind your back. She is providing information to reporters. I said not today, Willow exclaimed, her voice finally breaking. You're not just ruining this for me. You're ruining it for Wiley. Michael's mouth opened, as if he were about to protest further, but the weight of her words eventually settled. He looked at Wiley, who was now sitting quietly on the towel, clutching a half-eaten slice of watermelon, confused whether to talk or remain silent. Willow stared at her son, then back to Michael. He doesn't have to see us like this. He does not need to bear our wrath. For a brief moment Michael softened, but it did not last long. You're letting your guard down, he murmured, bringing the edge back. And when everything falls apart, I just hope you're ready to explain that to him. Willow's throat clenched. You don't get to walk in here and ruin our afternoon, and then act like you're protecting us. I'm doing what I have to, he continued, his voice frightening in its certainty. I'm not going to sit back while you let her back into Wiley's life. Willow moved closer, reducing her voice to a level that only Michael could understand. You don't have control over who I forgive. And you don't get to use Wiley against me. Michael stiffened. That's not what I'm doing. Then leave, she replied, before you do more damage. There was a beat of quiet between them, as they both refused to look away. But ultimately, Michael turned on his heel and stormed back toward the gate without saying anything. Willow stood motionless, her hands trembling by her sides. Wiley gazed up at her, a confused expression on his young face. Why is Daddy mad? Willow knelt beside him again, softly stroking his hair away from his brow. Daddy and I just disagreed over something. But everything is okay now. I promise. She kissed his forehead and drew him into an embrace, attempting to center herself in the gentle pattern of his breathing. But nothing felt right. The meeting had ruined what should have been a pleasant, healing day. Willow gazed at the water, its surface serene once more, but the tranquility it promised now felt hollow. Michael hadn't just turned up with concerns. He'd pushed through the boundaries she'd worked so hard to keep. Worst of all, He'd pulled their child into the maelstrom he was still fighting alongside Nina. Willow sat alone by the poolside after Wiley went inside for a nap. The gentle splash of water was the only sound. She was supposed to be feeling better by now. Supposed to be healing. Supposed to be moving forward. But how could she progress forward when Michael seems to pull her backward with each step? She understood his anguish, his distrust of Nina, his sense of betrayal, but there came a point where protection turned into control. Michael was speeding past that point, unable to understand the consequences of his actions. He thought he was protecting Wiley, but in truth, he was projecting his wrath and fear, which was tainting every contact they had. She picked up Wiley's towel, delicately folded it, and placed it on the chair near her. Her thoughts turned to the last time she and Michael had actually agreed on something, with no lingering tension below. Seems like a lifetime ago. Since then their universe had been a single unraveling thread. Michael had always led the charge into war, but she worried if he still recognized what he was fighting for. Was there justice? Revenge? Or was it only an illusion of control in a world where so much had fallen through his fingers? Willow understood that her options were not without peril. Allowing Nina back into her orbit was difficult, emotionally intense, and occasionally extremely upsetting. But that was her decision. Michael's refusal to accept this posed a far greater threat to their co-parenting than Nina's presence could ever have. Willow glanced out at the sea as the sun began to set below the horizon, sending long shadows across the pool deck. A quiet storm of emotion was gathering within her. She didn't know what would happen next. But she knew one thing for certain. Michael couldn't keep popping up like this. Not if they were going to safeguard what was actually important. Wiley deserved better than parents who were constantly arguing in front of him. He deserved serenity, structure, and love free of conflict. Willow made a mental promise to herself. The next time Michael tried to bulldoze his way into a situation like this, she would not simply ask him to go. She would make it obvious that there were repercussions. Co-parenting entailed compromise, not ultimatums. If he couldn't meet her there, she would find another way forward. According to General Hospital spoilers, Kai Taylor informed Drew Kane that Curtis Ashford is hunting for Jacinda and plans to bribe her to lie, and Drew took the medication on his own. Drew now has this information, and he could put an end to Curtis' plot before it begins. Drew may need to move quickly before Jacinda is found. Felicia Scorpio still hasn't found Jacinda. Curtis recruited Felicia Scorpio to locate Jacinda. Felicia was close to finding her, but she has yet to succeed. Drew is unaware that Curtis hired Felicia to find Jacinda, but he knows Nina Reeves may be able to locate her before Curtis. Drew Kane cannot afford more negative publicity. Drew cannot afford to receive any more negative PR following the press conference in which he was devastated. He needs to put an end to Curtis' plot before it begins. He would have to trick Nina into revealing him Jacinda's whereabouts. Nina may not know where Jacinda is, but she knows she is somewhere in the Australian bush. Drew might hire someone in Australia to find Jacinda, offer her additional money to get her out of Australia, and whisk her away to an unknown location where she would never be found. Jacinda accepts Drew Kane's offer. After Drew's investigator discovers her, Jacinda may opt to accept Drew's offer for more money and flee Australia. Felicia could be on Jacinda's trail at this point, and she might stumble across her whereabouts. Fortunately for Drew, Felicia could only miss Jacinda, and she is gone as Felicia arrives. Felicia would be irritated that she had just missed her. However, Drew may have effectively removed Jacinda from the picture before Curtis can begin his scheme to smear Drew. Curtis Ashford's hopes are dashed. Jacinda could disappear permanently, therefore Curtis' attempt to make Drew appear guilty in order to spare his wife, Dr. Portia Robinson, from Drew's blackmail would have failed. Curtis may find another means to stop Drew, but now that Kai has informed him, Drew may outsmart him. Drew has stopped Curtis in his tracks, and he can now concentrate on rebuilding his reputation, his marriage to Willow Tate, and their forthcoming wedding. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Do you think Drew will locate Jacinda before Felicia does? Will Drew pay Jacinda to get out of sight? Will Drew thwart Curtis' scheme before it begins? Drew could tell something wasn't right the instant he went into Curtis' office. The tension in the room did not match the carefree smile Curtis attempted to display. Curtis had been grappling with his identity, purpose, and place in Port Charles for months following the shooting. But it wasn't just about healing. Drew had seen this look before. Too much intensity and secrecy. Drew wasn't about to ignore what was brewing. Curtis had grown too close to Jacinda, a high-stakes fixer with a past as shadowy as the Cassadine vaults. Drew had heard allegations that Jacinda had helped carry weaponry across Eastern Europe, dabbled in digital theft, and gotten away with it more than the justice system could count. Curtis stated she was reformed and wanted a new life. Drew did not purchase it. Curtis had started locking doors behind him and taking late-night calls over encrypted lines. The final straw came when Drew noticed a blueprint stashed beneath a folder on Curtis' desk, a layout of Port Charles Harbor with strategic locations indicated. He didn't say anything further, simply nodded, feigned to inquire about Trina, and departed. However, his instinct told him that Curtis was not preparing a charity event. Something was being moved or someone. Drew has previously worked on the dark side of business. He recognized when someone was being duped, and Curtis, despite his strength and integrity, was going right into a trap. Jacinda did not want a new life. She wanted access. Curtis, with his expanding political ties and community influence, was the ideal key. He waited a few days and performed his own digging. The more he discovered, the worse it appeared. Jacinda had been seen at Metro Court several times, usually with a man who was on the FBI's watch list. And Curtis? He just secured a contract to establish a tech venture downtown, the same area where Jacinda's shell business had inexplicably invested. Drew did not confront Curtis immediately. He visited Marshall first. The older man had been concerned for weeks and had even mentioned to Drew that something did not feel right. But Marshall dismissed it, unable to think his kid could be influenced in that way. Marshall's face turned pale as Drew showed him the paper trail, which included shell accounts, bogus corporate fronts, and the silent disappearances of important actors. "I trusted him," Marshall muttered, his hands quivering. "I thought he was too smart to fall for something like this." "He's not the problem," Drew stated. "Not yet. But if this continues, he will be." Curtis' freedom and reputation were not the only issues at stake. If Jacinda used his foundation or public works projects to launder money or arrange crimes, dozens of innocent people might be implicated. Even Trina, who had begun assisting Curtis with outreach projects, was fully oblivious of the web being spun about them. Drew made his move while attending a conference at the Savoy. He knew Curtis wouldn't anticipate it there. Not in his safe sanctuary, his emblem of personal transformation. Drew stepped in without an appointment, allowing the moment to take over. Curtis was alone, reading documents, when Drew dropped the entire folder onto the table. "What is this?" Curtis asked, scarcely looking up. "Everything you should know about Jacinda. And everything you should have expected." Curtis sat back slowly, his gaze narrowing. He opened the folder and scanned the first few pages. Bank records, telephone logs, surveillance photographs. Jacinda is in a room with known smugglers. Jacinda signs over phony documents. Jacinda meets with a man connected to gun shipments in South America. "What the hell is this?" Curtis mumbled. "It's what you've been walking into with your eyes wide open." Curtis pushed back from the table, sliding the folder across the glossy wood. "Are you spying on me now?" "No," Drew said, his voice low. "I'm protecting you." Drew could tell the blow had struck by the look on Curtis' face. Pride clashed with recognition. Curtis was no fool. He had to have understood that some of Jacinda's actions did not make sense. But he wanted to believe in her and in the concept of salvation. Drew got it. He'd experienced it. However, this was not a second-chance narrative. It was a setup. "Do you think I'm just letting her use me?" Curtis said after a long pause. "I think you're giving her the benefit of the doubt while she's using that doubt to bury you." Curtis ran his fingers over his face. "She said she was done with that life. She isn't. And she never was." Drew did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Every word hit harder because of his calm demeanor. Curtis returned his gaze to Drew after looking back at the folder. Something had changed in his eyes, the denial weakening just enough for the truth to emerge. "I was going to pull out," Curtis finally said. "I had doubts too. But you didn't." Curtis did not respond. Drew leaned forwards. "You have a girl who still looks to her father as the man she believes in. You have a city that depends on you to lead. Whatever this is, whatever you expected it to be, it's over now. As if it doesn't, I will end it for you. There was no threat in his tone, only a promise. Drew Kane made a serious pledge. Curtis did not argue. He sat in silence for a long time, peering out across the bar he'd created from the ground up, the only part of his life free of blood and corruption, until now. Drew stood about to leave when Curtis spoke again. Can you handle the cleanup? Drew hesitated. I've already started. Curtis gradually distanced himself from Jacinda throughout the course of the following days. It wasn't clean and she didn't leave softly. In fact, she made it unpleasant. There were veiled threats and attempts to blackmail Curtis using recordings and fake documents. Drew, however, was always ahead of her. He called in favors, used his previous contacts, and took down her network before she could respond. Port Charles would never realize how close it had gotten to become a pawn in an international game. The public assumed Curtis had opted to center on local work, withdrawing from outside partnerships. Only a few people knew the reality, and they weren't saying. Trina observed a difference in her father. First, she attributed it to stress. Then she noticed how he smiled a little easier and began to devote more time to his family again. He said nothing about Jacinda. He did not have to. Trina was intelligent. She knew when something had gone wrong, and she knew Drew had helped correct it. Drew did not anticipate gratitude. That was not why he stepped in. But one night, Curtis discovered him sitting alone on the dock and joined him without saying anything. She had me twisted up, Curtis finally said. Made me believe I was doing something good. You wanted to believe it, Drew answered. That is not a crime. But not stopping her would have been. Curtis nodded slowly. You saved me from that. I saved us all. It was not heroics. It was responsibility. One resulted from too many previous blunders. Drew had witnessed the consequences of individuals turning a blind eye. He was no longer willing to do it. Jacinda gone. Some claim she ran. Others claim she was removed from the board by the same people who earlier supported her. Drew didn't care. As long as she was gone, Port Charles was safe. Curtis rebuilt again. This time with firmer limits and clearer vision. His partnership with Drew grew stronger not out of gratitude, but because of trust built through adversity. They didn't always agree, but they both understood what it meant to be targeted and what it took to live. And Trina? She kept developing and dreaming. Her creativity, activism, and sense of justice all thrived with the constant presence of a father who had gone dangerously near to losing his way, but had not. Drew stopped him cold. Not with force, not with threats, but with the truth. Sometimes that was sufficient. General Hospital spoilers hint that flames are flying as Drew Quartermain and Willow Corinthos approach the one-year anniversary of their illicit romance on July 4th, but fans are unsure whether their milestone will cause celebration or disaster. Willow is still suffering from losing custody of Amelia and Wiley Corinthos to Michael Corinthos in June, and Drew's manipulative lies are pushing her over the edge. Their scheduled anniversary could be filled with drama. Will their love withstand the fireworks of secrets being revealed? Or will revelations like Drew's flirtation with Nina Reeves destroy their relationship? A milestone marked by secrets. Drew and Willow's affair, which began in feverish stolen moments a year ago, is now strained by his betrayals, many of which she is still unaware of. Their anniversary preparations, such as a private supper at the Metro Court, may be intended to renew their bond, but Willow's delicate health and Drew's engagement push raise questions about whether it's love or control. If Nina's romance with Drew is revealed, maybe through Sasha Gilmore Corbin's slip or another brawl with Cody Bell, will their milestone celebration generate a passionate recommitment or erupt into a blazing split? In any case, this July 4th appears to have the potential to inspire serious independence. Fireworks or fallout. The anniversary could be a tipping point. If Willow discovers Drew's fling with Nina or his blackmail of Portia Robinson, a public fight, perhaps mid-toast, might terminate their romance, with Carly Spencer possibly on site as hostess and exacerbating the tragedy. Will Drew admit to what he did? If he doubles down and tells lies to keep Willow, he risks pushing her towards Michael for co-parenting. Will their anniversary result in pyrotechnics of love, or a tragic breakdown of trust? Port Charles prepares for the blast. A fiery anniversary could have an impact on Michael's custody stance, if Willow eventually sees the light. If she walks away, her chances of reclaiming visitation may improve, but Drew's desperation may worsen, and we may watch him become increasingly desperate rather than following her lead. Is there any possibility Drew and Willow's one-year anniversary will conclude with fireworks of desire, or will secrets like Nina's fling shatter their love? If the truth about Drew's relationship with Nina comes out, will she do the right thing as Willow's mother, or will she try to portray herself as a victim of his charms? Stay tuned for more GH updates and spoilers to discover out. Drew and Willow never anticipated their gentle attraction would result in something so explosive. A year ago they crossed a line they never intended to, never expected to, and never wanted to acknowledge to. It was a mistake shrouded in vulnerability, brought on by sadness, loneliness, and disappointment. But when the anniversary of their secret romance approached, that error no longer seemed like a lack in judgment. It had transformed into something deeper, more threatening, and more defining. Willow had always been the epitome of loyalty and kindness, but that image had long ago fractured beneath the surface. Her marriage to Michael had felt solid for years, based on common goals and shared trauma, particularly throughout her cancer treatment. However, survival did not imply satisfaction, and healing did not indicate renewal. While her health improved, her emotional attachment to Michael weakened. It wasn't entirely his fault. He'd tried in his own way. However, his return to ELQ, his obsession with proving something to Sunny, and the icy diplomacy he carried into their home made it feel more like a boardroom than a family. She needed warmth. She needed to feel seen. Drew, still hurting from his own personal losses and the lies surrounding his return to Port Charles, felt similarly unmoored. Carly's rejection, while softened over time, had left him resentful. He threw himself into his profession, his image, and attempting to be the man he thought he was before prison and treachery tore him apart. Willow had been a shelter at first, simply listening, not asking too many questions, and offering stillness rather than platitudes. But when they found themselves alone one night, laden with booze and grief, the quiet broke. In that moment they grabbed for each other. What began as comfort became something memorable. They had agreed it would be a one-time event. An error. Something neither of them could ever talk about again. But if you let something like that live in the shadows, it won't die. It grows teeth. In the months that followed, they avoided each other with the civility that only the truly guilty possess. Drew immersed himself deeper in his power games at Aurora and ELQ. Willow worked harder to please Michael, being more friendly and giving, even if her heart wasn't in it. But the shame lingered like a shadow that neither could shake. And then, as luck would have it, they continued crossing paths, charity galas, family dinners, strategy discussions meant to support the next generation. It was during one of those gatherings, over 6 months after their affair, that the ice broke again. One smile is too long. One look that lingered. And then what they had buried resurfaced. They did not act on it immediately. However, the urge, once awakened, had merely been dormant. By the 1-year mark, they had returned to perilous area. Sneaky moments. Lingering touches. Text messages that say nothing but everything. The distinction between friendship and something far more intimate blurred altogether. Willow attempted to justify it. Michael became colder, more ambitious, and less interested in her as a partner. He adored their children, but with the determination of a CEO rather than the emotion of a father. Drew, on the other hand, helped her feel alive. It was more than just attraction, it was about connection. Regarding being seen, Drew also resisted it. He understood the stakes. He knew that if their secret became public, it would destroy Willow as well as him. However, reasoning paled in compared to longing. They reconnected on the night of their anniversary. This time it was unplanned. The Courtemain mansion was having another fundraiser, and both were slated to attend. Drew came late, already on edge from a tense phone discussion with Carly, during which she accused him of losing his sense of direction. Willow arrived early, accompanied by Michael, who instantly withdrew into a circle of power players. They spent the majority of the evening pretending not to notice one another, but every movement was magnetic. Every inadvertent brush of arms created tension that neither could contain. Then came the fireworks.